The red sun of Thyros Prime burned hot above the mining colony. Dust clouds rose from the deep holes where workers dug for precious crystals. The heat made everything shimmer like water, but there was no water for everyone here. Hana wiped sweat from her face with a dirty cloth. The red mark on her forehead felt like it was burning. All the other workers could see it. The mark told everyone she was impure. Her blood was bad. Her family line was corrupted. She could never be clean. The Velthari people believed in purity above all else. Those who were pure had blue skin that gleamed in the sunlight. They wore white robes and lived in tall buildings with cool air and clean water. Those who were impure, like Hana, had gray skin marked with red. They lived in small metal huts that baked in the heat. They worked in the deepest, hottest parts of the mines. Hana's pickaxe felt heavy in her hands. She had been working since before sunrise. The crystal she was trying to dig out sparkled with blue light. These crystals powered everything the Velthari used. Their ships, their cities, their machines. But the impure workers who found these crystals could never touch the clean technology they powered. "Move faster," shouted Velkash, one of the pure overseers. His white robe stayed clean even in the dusty mine. The quota must be met before sunset. Hana's throat felt like sand. She had not drunk water since yesterday morning. The impure were only allowed to drink from the recycling pools. The water there was brown and tasted like metal. Sometimes it made workers sick. But it was all they were given. She swung her pickaxe again. The crystal cracked a little more. Just a bit longer and she could pull it free. Then she could carry it to the surface and maybe rest for a moment. Above ground, something new was happening. A metal ship had landed near the main buildings. It was not a Velthari ship. The design was different, simpler but somehow more solid. From the ship came beings that Hana had never seen before. They walked on two legs like the Velthari, but their skin was not blue or gray. Some had pale skin, others had darker skin in different shades. They wore practical clothes, not robes, and they carried strange devices that beeped and flashed with lights. Deho stepped off the human transport ship and looked around the mining colony. He was an engineer, sent here as part of a new trade agreement between Earth and the Velthari Empire. The humans needed the special crystals for their own technology. The Velthari wanted human manufacturing techniques. "Welcome to Thyros Prime," said Zentak, the High Purifier. His blue skin was darker than the other Velthari, showing his high rank. "We hope this partnership will be profitable for both our peoples." Deho nodded politely, but he was already noticing things that made him uncomfortable. The workers coming out of the mines looked exhausted and thirsty. Some had red marks on their faces. They moved differently than the blue-skinned Velthari, keeping their heads down, avoiding eye contact. "Those workers," Deho said, pointing toward a group carrying crystal containers. "They look unwell. Do they need medical attention?" Zentak's expression hardened. "Those are the impure. They are marked by genetic corruption from their ancestors. It is not your concern." "Genetic corruption?" Deho asked. "What does that mean?" "Long ago, some of our people were exposed to radiation from a great disaster. Their children and their children's children carry the taint in their blood. They are useful for certain work, but they must be kept separate from the pure." Deho watched as the marked workers lined up at a station where they were given small cups of murky water. They drank quickly and gratefully, then returned to work. The pure Velthari drank from clear bottles filled with clean, cool water. "They get different water," Deho observed. "The impure cannot contaminate our water supplies," Zentak explained. "It is the way things have always been. Now shall we discuss the crystal extraction quotas?" But Deho found it hard to focus on business. Throughout the day, as Zentak showed him the mining operations, he kept watching the marked workers. They worked in the hottest, most dangerous areas. They carried the heaviest loads, and they were given the least water and the worst food. In the deep mines, Hana finally freed the crystal from the rock wall. It was beautiful, glowing with inner light. She lifted it carefully and began the long climb to the surface. Her legs shook with tiredness. Her mouth felt so dry she could barely swallow. When she reached the loading area, she stumbled. The crystal slipped from her hands. For a moment, she thought it would shatter on the ground, but strong hands caught it before it could fall. Hana looked up to see one of the strange new beings. He had kind eyes and clothes covered in dust from the mine. He held the crystal carefully and looked at her with concern. "Are you all right?" Deho asked in the Velthari language. He had studied it before coming to Thyros Prime. Hana stared at him in shock. No one had asked if she was all right in years. Pure Velthari never spoke to the Impure unless giving orders, and this being, this human, was looking at her like she mattered. "I am fine," she whispered, though she was not fine at all. She was dizzy from thirst and exhaustion. Deho could see she was not fine. Her gray skin was too pale. Her lips were cracked from thirst. She swayed on her feet like she might fall down. "Here," he said, reaching for the water bottle on his belt. "Drink some of this." Hana's eyes went wide with fear. "I cannot. It is forbidden. I am impure." "I don't understand," Deho said. "It's just water." Before Hana could explain, Velkash appeared. His face was twisted with anger. "Human, step away from that creature immediately. You do not understand what you are doing." "I'm trying to help someone who is clearly dehydrated," Deho replied calmly. "She is impure. Contact with her will contaminate you. The water you offer will spread corruption." Velkash grabbed Hana's arm roughly. "Back to work. You have wasted enough time." Deho watched as Hana was dragged away. She looked back at him once, her eyes full of surprise and something that might have been hope. He stood there holding his water bottle, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. That evening, Deho sat in his assigned quarters, thinking about the day. Through his window, he could see the Impure workers' housing area, small metal buildings with no cooling systems. The people there looked tired and sick. He thought about Hana's face when he had offered her water. The fear, but also the desperate need. On Earth, water was a basic right. No one was denied it because of their genetics or social status. Deho made a decision. Tomorrow, he would learn more about these people and their situation. And maybe if he was careful, he could find a way to help. In her small hot room, Hana lay on her thin sleeping mat. She could not stop thinking about the human who had tried to give her water. His eyes had been kind. He had caught her crystal when she dropped it. He had asked if she was all right. For the first time in years, Hana allowed herself to imagine what it might be like to be treated with kindness, to matter to someone, to not be seen as impure and worthless. The red mark on her forehead seemed to burn less as she fell asleep, dreaming of clean, cool water and gentle voices asking if she was all right. 3 days passed before Hana saw Deho again. During those days, the story of his kindness spread through every tunnel and workstation. The impure workers whispered about the human who had shared his water and called them people. Some began to hope. Others warned that hope was dangerous. Deho spent those days in a white room, refusing to apologize for his actions. Zentok visited him daily, trying to make him understand the Velthari way. Each conversation ended the same way, with Deho calmly stating that denying water to sentient beings was wrong. On the 4th day, Jiwan arrived. She was the head of the human trade delegation, a diplomat with many years of experience. She had come to fix the problems that Deho's kindness had created. "You have put our entire mission at risk," Jiwan told Deho as they sat in his prison room. "The Velthari are threatening to cancel the trade agreement." "Do you understand what that means?" "It means we won't be able to get their crystals," Deho replied. "But it also means we won't be helping a civilization that treats people like slaves. Those marked workers are not people in the way we understand it," Jiwan said, though her voice was not entirely certain. "They are a different species with different rules." "They're the same species as the blue-skinned ones," Deho said. "The only difference is some old radiation exposure that actually made them stronger, not weaker." Jiwan frowned. "How do you know that?"
"I've been talking to them."
And thinking, why would they put the marked ones in the most dangerous radioactive parts of the mines? Because they can survive there when the pure ones cannot. This was a new idea to Jiwan. She had not thought deeply about the work assignments in the mines, but now that Deho mentioned it, it did seem strange to send the supposedly weakest workers to the most dangerous places. "Even if that's true," Jiwan said, "we cannot change their entire society. We are here for trade, not to start a revolution." "Sometimes those things are the same," Deho replied quietly. That evening, Jiwan walked through the mining colony, thinking about Deho's words. She observed the workers more carefully than before. The marked ones did seem to handle the heat and dust better than the pure Velthari. They worked longer hours in conditions that made the blue-skinned overseers uncomfortable. She also noticed something else. The marked workers moved differently than before. There was less fear in their posture. They looked at each other with new expressions as if sharing a secret. When they thought no one was watching, she saw them smile. In the deepest mine tunnel, Hana worked alongside Borum and Nari. They had been talking about Deho's words, trying to understand what it meant to be called people. He said our genetics might be strengths, not weaknesses. Hana whispered as she chipped at a crystal formation. What do you think he meant? Look around, Borum said quietly. We work in heat that makes the pure ones sick. We breathe dust that would choke them. We handle radiation that burns their skin. Maybe we are not weak at all. Nari stopped working for a moment. But the doctrine of purity says many things, Borum interrupted. But has anyone ever proved them? Has anyone ever tested whether we are really inferior? This was dangerous talk. Questioning the doctrine was forbidden for everyone, but especially for the impure. Yet the questions felt important, necessary. The humans seem to know things about genetics, Hana said. Things the pure ones do not teach us. What if there are other things we have not been told? Above ground, Sunho had arrived with the second human delegation ship. He was a scientist, specializing in genetics and radiation biology. Jiwon had called for him after her conversation with Deho. I need you to study the marked workers, Jiwon told him privately. Deho thinks their genetics are actually advantageous, not corrupted. If he's right, it changes everything. Sunho set up his equipment in secret, using scanners that could analyze genetics from a distance. What he found amazed him. The marked workers had genetic adaptations that made them highly resistant to radiation, heat, and certain toxins. They were not corrupted at all. They were evolved. This is incredible, Sunho told Jiwon as they reviewed the data. These people are naturally adapted to survive in harsh environments. Their ancestors survived something that should have killed them, and passed on those survival traits. Can you prove this? Jiwon asked. The genetic evidence is clear. But more than that, look at where they work. The Velthari put them in the most dangerous areas because they are the only ones who can survive there safely. Jiwon realized the horrible truth. The Velthari knew the marked ones were stronger. They had always known. The doctrine of purity was not about protecting society from weakness. It was about exploiting strength while pretending it was corruption. We have to tell them, Jiwon said. The marked workers have a right to know the truth about themselves, but telling the truth would be dangerous. Zentak had already threatened to end the trade agreement over Deho's simple act of kindness. Revealing that the entire foundation of Velthari society was a lie might lead to war. That night, Myung visited Deho in his prison room. He brought news from the outside. The workers are changing, Myung said. They stand straighter now. They look at each other differently. What did you say to them? I told them they were people, Deho replied. I told them their suffering mattered. Zentak is furious. He says you have planted dangerous ideas. He wants to start the purification rituals tomorrow. What kind of rituals? Myung's face was grim. Painful ones. They involve chemicals that burn the skin and procedures that, well, they are designed to cause suffering. The idea is that pain will drive out contamination. Deho nodded calmly. Then I guess it starts tomorrow. You could apologize, Myung said desperately. You could say you were wrong, that you understand their ways now. They might let you go with just a warning. And then what? I watch them deny water to people who need it? I pretend that treating sentient beings like animals is acceptable. Deho shook his head. No. Some things are worth suffering for. Meanwhile, in the workers' quarters, Hana lay awake thinking about the past few days. The taste of clean water still lingered in her memory. But more than that, she remembered the look in Deho's eyes when he called her a person. For her entire life, she had accepted that she was impure, corrupted, less than the blue-skinned Velthari. But what if that was not true? What if the human was right and genetics were just differences, not rankings? She touched the red mark on her forehead. For the first time, she wondered what it would be like to wear it with pride instead of shame. The next morning brought terrible news. Zentak announced that Deho's purification would begin immediately. The rituals would be public, to show everyone what happened to those who violated the doctrine of purity. But as the pure Velthari prepared their ceremony, they did not notice the marked workers gathering in the deep tunnels. They did not see the new determination in gray-skinned faces. They did not understand that by trying to punish kindness, they had created something far more dangerous than contamination. They had created hope. Hana stood in the center of a group of marked workers, telling them again about Deho's words, about being called people, about genetics being strengths instead of weaknesses. about the possibility that everything they had been taught was a lie. What do we do? Nari asked quietly. I do not know yet, Hana replied. But we cannot let them hurt the human who tried to help us. And we cannot keep accepting treatment that we do not deserve. Boram nodded slowly. For the first time in my life, I want to fight back. The others murmured agreement. They were still afraid, but fear was no longer the strongest emotion they felt. Now there was also anger and hope, and the growing certainty that change was possible. Above ground, Sunho was making preparations of his own. He had finished his analysis of the marked workers' genetics. The evidence was undeniable. These people were not inferior. They were remarkable survivors, adapted to thrive in conditions that would kill ordinary Velthari. When do we reveal the truth? He asked Jiwan. Soon, she replied, watching the preparations for Deho's punishment. But we have to be careful. The truth could destroy their society. It could also get us all killed. And if we say nothing, Jiwan looked toward the white building where Deho was imprisoned. Then we become part of their lie. We become part of the oppression. The decision was made. The humans would reveal the truth about the marked workers' genetics. They would expose the lie at the heart of Velthari society, and they would face whatever consequences came from choosing justice over profit. In his prison room, Daiho prepared for pain. But he also felt a strange peace. He had done the right thing. He had treated someone with kindness when the world told him not to. Whatever happened next, that truth would remain. The revolution was about to begin in earnest. The next morning came too soon for Hana. Her body ached from yesterday's work, but she had to return to the mines. The quota demanded it. She walked slowly toward the entrance, her empty stomach cramping with hunger. Daiho had risen early too. He could not sleep well in the heat, but more than that, he could not stop thinking about what he had seen. He walked toward the mining area, carrying his engineering tools and his water bottle. You should not be here so early, Myung said, catching up with his friend. Myung was another human engineer, older and more experienced with alien cultures. The work does not start for another hour. I want to understand this place better, Deho replied. Yesterday I met one of the marked workers. She was dying of thirst, but they won't let her drink clean water. Myung's face grew serious. Deho, you must be careful. These people have rules we do not understand. If we want the trade agreement to work, we cannot interfere with their customs. Their customs include letting people suffer from thirst when we have plenty of water, Deho said. How is that not our business? Before Myung could answer, they saw Hana walking toward them. She moved like every step hurt. Her gray skin looked even paler than yesterday. When she saw the humans, she tried to change direction and avoid them. Wait, Deho called out in the Velthari language. Please, I want to talk to you. Hana stopped but did not come closer. She looked around nervously, checking if any overseers were watching. I cannot speak with you, she said quietly. It is forbidden. Yesterday was a mistake. Why is it forbidden? Deho asked, stepping closer. You are a person. I am a person. Why can we not talk? Hana's eyes filled with confusion. No one had ever called her a person before. The pure Velthari called the impure many things, but never people. They were workers, creatures, genetic mistakes, but never people. I am impure, she said, as if this explained everything. My blood is corrupted. Contact with me will contaminate you. That's not how contamination works, Deho said. I'm an engineer. I understand biology and chemistry. Talking to you cannot hurt me. Myung pulled on Deho's arm. We should go. Someone will see us, but Deho ignored his friend. He reached for his water bottle and held it out to Hana. You need water. This is clean and safe. Please take it. Hana stared at the bottle like it was a precious jewel. She could see water drops on the outside, cold and fresh. Her throat felt like it was made of sand, but she shook her head. I cannot. The punishment would be severe. For both of us, what punishment? Deho asked. Before Hana could answer, angry voices shouted from behind them. Zentak and two other pure Velthari were running toward them. Their white robes flowed in the morning wind. Human, step away from that creature immediately. Zentak's voice was full of rage. What are you doing? I'm offering water to someone who needs it, Deho said calmly. He did not move away from Hana. You do not understand the danger, Zentak said, his blue skin darker with anger. That thing carries genetic corruption. Contact with it will contaminate you. The water you offer will become poisoned. That's not scientifically possible, Deho replied. Genetics don't work that way. Zentak's eyes narrowed. Are you questioning the wisdom of our ancestors? The doctrine of purity has protected our people for centuries. I'm questioning why you let sentient beings suffer when you could easily help them, Deho said. The word sentient hit the Velthari like a physical blow. They did not consider the impure to be truly sentient. They were tools, biological machines for dangerous work. To call them sentient was to suggest they had rights, thoughts, feelings. That is enough, Zentak said coldly. You will come with me immediately. This contamination must be stopped before it spreads. I'm not contaminated, Deho said, and neither is she. But as he spoke, he unscrewed the cap of his water bottle. In one quick motion, he held it out to Hana. Drink, he said simply. Hana looked at the water, then at Zentak's furious face, then back at Deho's kind eyes. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then, slowly, she reached out and took the bottle. The water was the cleanest, coldest, most wonderful thing she had ever tasted. It flowed down her throat like liquid mercy. She drank deeply, feeling strength return to her body with each swallow. Zentak made a sound of horror and disgust. You have doomed yourself, human, and you have corrupted our water supply. This violation cannot be ignored. Myung stepped forward, his face pale with worry. High Purifier, surely we can discuss this. My friend is new here. He does not understand your customs. There is nothing to discuss, Zentak said. The human has willingly contaminated himself. He must undergo purification rituals immediately, or the trade agreement is void. What kind of rituals? Myung asked nervously. Painful ones, Zentak replied, and expensive. The human will pay for the contamination he has caused. Daiho handed his engineering tools to Myung. Do what you have to do, he said, but I won't apologize for giving water to someone who needed it. As the Veltari guards took Daiho away, Hana watched with growing amazement. The human had known there would be punishment. He had seen Zentak's anger. But he had given her water anyway. Other impure workers had seen what happened. Word spread quickly through the mining tunnels. A human had shared his water with one of them. A human had called them sentient. A human had been willing to suffer punishment to help them. Borum was one of the oldest impure workers. He had seen many years of suffering. Many friends die from thirst and exhaustion. He found Hana as she returned to work. Is it true? He asked quietly. Did the human really give you his water? Hana nodded, still tasting the clean water on her lips. He said I was a person. He said talking to me could not hurt him. Borum's old eyes widened. A person? He called you a person? Yes, and he said genetics do not work the way the pure ones claim. Other workers gathered around them in the dim tunnel. They spoke in whispers, afraid to be overheard. What does this mean? Asked Nari, a young worker like Hana. Why would he help us? I do not know, Hana said. But he looked at me like I mattered. Like my suffering was important to him. The workers fell silent, trying to understand this new idea. That their suffering might matter to someone. That they might be seen as people rather than tools. Meanwhile, Daiho was taken to a white building in the center of the colony. Inside, everything was clean and cool. The floors were polished stone, the walls were decorated with beautiful art. It was a different world from the hot, dusty mines. You will stay here until the purification rituals begin, Zentak said. The contamination you carry is dangerous. You must be cleansed before you can return to normal society. I'm not contaminated, Daiho said for the third time, and treating people badly based on their genetics is wrong. You speak of things you do not understand, Zentak replied. The impure are not people as you think of them. They are genetic failures, useful for certain tasks, but fundamentally flawed. That's not true, Daiho said. I'm a scientist. I've studied genetics. There's no such thing as genetic purity or impurity. There are only differences, and differences can be strengths. Zentak's blue skin grew darker with anger. You will not spread these lies. The doctrine of purity is the foundation of our civilization. Without it, we would fall into chaos. Your civilization is built on the suffering of innocent people, Daiho said quietly. Where I come from, we call that evil. The word evil hung in the air like a challenge. Zentak had never been called evil before. The pure Velthari saw themselves as righteous, following ancient wisdom to protect their people from corruption. You will learn to understand our ways, Zentak said finally, or you will be removed from this world entirely. Back in the mines, the story of Daiho's kindness continued to spread. Workers who had never dared to hope began to whisper about change. They shared the clean water that still remained in Daeho's bottle, each taking only a small sip so everyone could taste it. For the first time in generations, the Impure workers began to imagine a world where they were treated with dignity, where their suffering mattered, where they were seen as people. And in a small room in the white building, Daeho sat calmly, knowing that whatever punishment awaited him, he had done the right thing. Sometimes, he thought, the most powerful thing you can do is simply treat someone with kindness when the world tells you not to. The revolution had begun with a single bottle of water. The morning of Daeho's punishment arrived with a blood-red sunrise. Zentek had arranged for the purification ritual to take place in the central plaza, where all workers could see. It would be a lesson about the price of contamination. But as the pure Velthari prepared their ceremony, something unexpected was happening in the deep mines. The marked workers had stopped working. All of them. Every tunnel, every crystal face, every dangerous radiation zone stood empty. Hana stood at the entrance to the deepest mine shaft, where the most valuable crystals were found. Behind her, 50 marked workers waited quietly. Their faces showed a new kind of determination. "They will punish us," Nari whispered, fear still evident in her voice. "They are already punishing us," Hana replied, "every day with bad water and impossible quotas and treating us like animals. What more can they do?" Borum nodded grimly. "The humans showed us we have value. Now we must show ourselves we have power." Above ground, the work supervisors were discovering the problem. Felkesh ran from tunnel to tunnel, finding them all empty. His white robes were soon dirty with dust as he searched for workers. "Where are they?" he demanded of another overseer. "The quotas must be met." "I do not know," came the reply. "They were here yesterday. This morning, nothing." Zentak was informed just as the purification ceremony was about to begin. His blue skin grew dark with rage. "Find them," he ordered. "Drag them back to work if necessary. The humans' contamination has spread further than we thought." But the marked workers were not hiding. They had gathered in the largest underground chamber, a natural cave where crystal formations created a cathedral of blue light. Here they waited and planned. "The pure ones cannot work the deep mines," Borum explained to the group. "The radiation would kill them in hours. The heat would make them sick." "They need us." "But they have weapons," another worker said nervously. "They have guards." "Yes," Hana said, thinking of Daeho's calm courage. "But they cannot shoot the crystals out of the ground. They cannot force the ore to come free. They still need us to do the work." Meanwhile, Jiwon and Sunho were having their own crisis meeting. The humans had been ordered to witness Daeho's punishment, to see what happened to those who violated Velthari law. "We cannot let them torture him," Sunho said, checking his equipment. "The genetic data is ready. We can broadcast the truth about the marked workers to the entire colony. If we do that, we declare war on their whole society," Jiwon replied. "Are we prepared for that?" Myung joined them, his face grim. "I have been monitoring their communications. The marked workers have gone on strike. All mining is stopped." Jiwon's eyes widened. "All of it?" "Every tunnel. Every work crew. The Velthari are panicking because they cannot reach the deep ore without the marked workers." "This changes everything," Sunho said. "The workers are fighting back on their own. We just need to give them the tools to win." The decision was made. As Zentak prepared to torture Daeho for the crime of kindness, the humans prepared to reveal the truth that would shatter the foundation of Velthari society. In the plaza, a crowd gathered to watch the punishment. Pure Velthari came to see justice done. They brought their children to learn about the dangers of contamination. The ceremony was meant to reinforce their beliefs about purity and corruption. Daeho was brought out in chains. He walked calmly, showing no fear. When he saw Jiwon and the other humans in the crowd, he nodded slightly. He trusted them to do what was right. "Citizens of Thyros Prime," Zentak announced, his voice carrying across the plaza. "Today we cleanse a contamination that threatened our way of life. This human chose to ignore our laws and share resources with the genetically impure. His corruption must be burned away." But before the ritual could begin, Sunho stepped forward. In his hands was a device that could broadcast to every communication screen in the colony. "Wait," Sunho called out. "Before you begin, there is something everyone should know about the marked workers." Zentak's face twisted with anger. "Silence. You have no authority here." "I have the authority of truth," Sunho replied. He activated his device and suddenly every screen in the colony showed the same image. Genetic analysis data. The marked workers are not genetically inferior, Sunho announced, his voice now broadcasting everywhere. They are genetically superior. Their ancestors survived radiation that would have killed ordinary Velthari. Their children inherited resistance to heat toxins and deadly conditions. The crowd in the plaza began to murmur. On the screens, clear genetic evidence showed the marked workers' adaptations. Heat resistance, radiation immunity, enhanced healing, improved lung capacity for dusty environments. This is lies, Zentak shouted. Human deception. The evidence is undeniable, Sunho continued. You put them in the most dangerous jobs because they are the only ones strong enough to survive there. You call them impure because you need them to believe they are worthless. But they are not worthless. They are remarkable. In the underground chamber, the marked workers watched the broadcast on a salvaged screen. They saw their own genetics displayed like a badge of honor instead of shame. They saw scientific proof that they were not corrupted but evolved. We are strong, Hana whispered, staring at the data. We have always been strong. The pure ones have always known, Borum said, his voice filled with growing anger. They called us impure to keep us from understanding our own power. Above ground, chaos was spreading through the crowd. Pure Velthari stared at the screens in confusion and growing horror. Their entire belief system was crumbling before their eyes. Lies, Zentak repeated desperately. The humans seek to destroy us with false information. But other pure Velthari were beginning to think. They remembered how the marked workers could toil in conditions that made the pure sick. They remembered the work assignments that never made sense if the marked ones were truly weak. If they are inferior, one citizen called out, why do we need them for the most important work? Why can they survive in places we cannot go? Asked another. Zentak realized he was losing control. In desperation, he ordered the guards to begin Deho's punishment immediately, hoping pain and spectacle would distract from the revelations. But as the guards moved forward, something unexpected happened. The marked workers emerged from the mines, not to return to work but to stand together in the plaza, hundreds of them moving as one group. Hana led them, no longer keeping her head down, no longer avoiding eye contact. The red mark on her forehead seemed to glow with pride instead of shame. We will not hide anymore, she announced, her voice carrying across the plaza. We will not accept lies about our worth. We will not watch you torture the human who showed us kindness. The pure Velthari guards looked uncertain. They were outnumbered now, and the genetic revelations had shaken their confidence in the old order. Arrest them all, Zentak commanded. They are contaminated by human lies. But the guards hesitated. If the marked workers were truly genetically superior, what did that make the guards? And if the entire doctrine was a lie, what were they really protecting? Jiwon stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over. High Purifier, you have a choice. You can try to maintain a system built on lies, or you can accept the truth and build something better. Never, Zentak spat. The doctrine of purity is sacred. The doctrine of purity is a tool of oppression, Daiho said calmly from his chains. And now everyone knows it. Around the plaza, pure Velthari citizens were looking at the marked workers with new eyes. These were not corrupted weaklings, but strong survivors. These were not genetic failures, but evolutionary successes. Some of the younger pure Velthari began to step forward, showing support for the marked workers. The rigid caste system was beginning to crack under the weight of revealed truth. But Zentak was not finished. If he could not maintain power through lies, he would maintain it through force. He signaled to hidden guards positioned around the plaza. If you will not preserve purity, he declared, then you are all contaminated, and contamination must be eliminated. Weapons appeared in the hands of Zentak's loyal followers. The peaceful revelation was about to become a bloody battle. But the humans had prepared for this possibility too. Jiwon activated her own hidden device, and suddenly the air around the plaza shimmered with an energy field. Advanced defensive technology, she announced calmly. No one will be harmed today. The weapons fired, but their energy blasts were absorbed harmlessly by the human shields. The pure Velthari stared in amazement at technology beyond their understanding. This is what cooperation looks like, Deho said, his chains falling away as Myung freed him with human tools. When different people work together, when no one is considered inferior, when strength comes from diversity instead of purity. Zentak stared around the plaza in growing desperation. His weapons were useless. His lies were exposed. His power was crumbling. But Hana stepped forward, her gray skin proud in the sunlight, her red mark blazing like a star. "You can choose," she said to Zentak and all the pure Velthari. "You can keep fighting to preserve lies, or you can help us build a world based on truth." The choice was before them all. The old world of lies and oppression, or a new world of truth and cooperation. The revolution had reached its turning point. The silence in the plaza stretched like a held breath. Zentak stood surrounded by the wreckage of his worldview, his loyal guards disarmed by human technology, his lies exposed by human science. Around him, pure and marked Velthari waited to see what would come next. Hana stepped closer to the high purifier, her red mark catching the light. For the first time in her life, she felt no fear in the presence of pure authority. "Your ancestors survived a great disaster," she said quietly. "Ours did too. The difference is that ours became stronger because of it. That is not corruption. That is victory over death itself." Zentak's blue skin had grown pale. His whole life had been built on the belief that he was genetically superior, chosen by blood to rule over the inferior. Now that foundation was crumbling beneath him. "Even if what you say is true," he said desperately, "the social order must be maintained. Without hierarchy, there is chaos." Daiho rubbed his wrists where the chains had been. "Where I come from, we learned that the strongest societies are built on cooperation, not domination. When everyone can contribute their best abilities, everyone benefits." "Impossible," Zentak said. "The marked ones are. They are the reason your civilization exists," Sunho interrupted, still broadcasting to the entire colony. "Without their ability to work in dangerous conditions, you could never have mined the crystals that power your technology. They built your world while you called them worthless." Around the plaza, more pure Velthari were beginning to understand. They looked at the marked workers with growing shame and wonder. How had they been so blind to the truth? Kira, a young pure Velthari who worked in the crystal processing facility, stepped forward hesitantly. I have worked with the marked ones," she said, her voice trembling. "They were always better at handling the raw crystals. We thought it was because they were expendable, but it was because they were naturally protected from the radiation." Other voices joined hers. Pure Velthari began to speak about what they had observed but never understood. The marked workers' abilities, their resilience, their quiet competence in deadly environments. But not everyone was ready to accept the new truth. A group of older pure Velthari, led by Zentak's deputy Varmoth, moved to form a defensive circle around their leader. "This is human manipulation," Varmoth declared. "They seek to divide us, to destroy our civilization from within. The doctrine of purity has protected us for generations." "Protected you from what?" Jiwan asked calmly. "From acknowledging the worth of people who were different? From sharing resources with those who needed them? From building a society based on cooperation instead of oppression? Protected us from genetic contamination," Varmoth replied angrily. "From the corruption that weakens our blood." Myung activated a holographic display showing genetic mapping. "Would you like to see what corruption really looks like? The marked workers have more genetic diversity, stronger immune systems, better adaptation to environmental stress. Your pure bloodlines show signs of inbreeding and genetic weakness." The scientific evidence was devastating. The pure Velthari had weakened themselves through isolation, while the marked ones had grown stronger through survival. In the crowd, some of the pure Velthari began to remove their white robes, the symbols of their supposed superiority. They looked at the gray-skinned workers with new respect and growing guilt. But the hardliners were not finished. Varmoth signaled to hidden supporters throughout the colony. If they could not maintain power through authority, they would try to keep it through violence. "Attention all loyal citizens," Varmoth broadcast on emergency channels. "The colony is under attack by human contamination. All impure workers must be contained immediately. Lethal force is authorized." Around the colony, alarms began to sound. Loyal guards moved to surround marked worker housing areas. Weapons were distributed to pure civilians willing to fight for the old order. "They will start a civil war," Boram said grimly, watching armed groups form in the distance. "No," Hana said with quiet determination. "We will not fight them with violence. We will show them something better." She turned to address all the workers, both marked and pure, who had gathered in the plaza. "The humans taught us that we have value," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the morning air. "Now we must teach everyone else. We will not meet hatred with hatred. We will meet it with truth. Daeho smiled, recognizing the wisdom in her words. What do you need from us? Water, Hana said simply. Clean water for everyone, pure and marked together. Show them what cooperation looks like. The humans immediately began unpacking advanced purification equipment from their ships, portable units that could produce clean water from the colony's contaminated supplies. They set them up in the center of the plaza, making no distinction between pure and marked workers. Water for everyone, Juan announced. No questions asked. No genetic tests required, because thirst is thirst, regardless of the color of your skin. The marked workers approached first, still cautious but no longer ashamed. They drank deeply of the clean, cool water, tasting freedom in every drop. Then, slowly, some of the pure Velthari began to approach as well. The younger ones first, then others who had been moved by the genetic revelations. They stood in line beside the marked workers, equal in their basic need for water. But Varmuth and his supporters were not moved by this display of unity. They saw it as further evidence of contamination spreading through their society. Attack now before the corruption spreads further, Varmuth commanded his followers. Armed pure Velthari began to advance on the plaza, weapons charged and ready. They intended to end the revolution with force to restore the old order through violence. But as they approached, something remarkable happened. The human defensive shields expanded, creating a protective barrier around everyone in the plaza. Pure and marked Velthari stood together under the same protection. Your weapons cannot penetrate our defenses, Sunho announced calmly. But more importantly, look around you. Look at who you are preparing to kill. The attackers hesitated, seeing their own people among those they had intended to harm. Pure Velthari citizens who had chosen to stand with the marked workers. Children who had been playing together regardless of skin color. Families divided by ideology but united by species. This is what your purity doctrine has brought you to, Daeho said, his voice reaching every corner of the colony through the broadcast system. You are ready to kill your own people to preserve a lie. Some of the attackers began to lower their weapons. They looked at the mixed crowd under the human shields and saw not enemies but neighbors, friends, family members who had chosen a different path. Zentok himself seemed to age years in minutes. His life's work lay in ruins around him. The doctrine he had served, the hierarchy he had enforced, the purity he had protected, all of it revealed as elaborate self-deception. What happens now? He asked quietly, his voice barely audible. Hana approached him, showing no fear or hatred. Now we build something better together. But we oppressed you for generations. We denied you water. We called you impure. We treated you as less than people. How can you forgive that? Because, Hana said simply, holding on to anger would make us no better than what you were. We choose to be better. The revolution's final moment came not with violence or conquest, but with an outstretched hand. Hana offered Zentok a cup of clean water, the same gift that Daeho had offered her days before. Zentok stared at the cup for a long moment. To accept it meant accepting that everything he had believed was wrong. It meant admitting that the people he had oppressed were offering him more grace than he had ever shown them. With trembling hands, he took the cup and drank. The change that followed was not immediate, but it was profound. Over the following months, the colony was restructured from the ground up. The caste system was abolished. Water purification systems were installed throughout all residential areas. Work assignments were based on ability and preference, not genetic markers. Daeho remained on Thyrus Prime as an engineering consultant, working alongside both pure and marked Velthari to improve mining safety and efficiency. His simple act of kindness had grown into a complete social transformation. Hana became the first marked Velthari to serve in colonial government, advocating for workers' rights and interspecies cooperation. The red mark on her forehead became a symbol not of shame, but of survival and strength. Sunho established a research center studying genetic adaptation and environmental survival. His work proved that diversity was not just acceptable, but essential for long-term species survival. The crystal mines became safer and more productive than ever before. When workers were treated with dignity, when everyone had access to clean water and proper equipment, when abilities were respected rather than punished, the entire colony flourished, and in the center of the main plaza a fountain was built. It provided clean, cool water to anyone who needed it, regardless of their genetics or history or social position. Above it, a simple inscription read, "Water is life. Life is sacred. All are welcome." Myung often found Daeho sitting by the fountain in the evenings watching pure and marked children play together in the spray. "Do you ever regret it?" Myung asked one day. "The choice to share your water that first day?